Vice President Harris lost her campaign this week in a major defeat against President-elect Donald Trump, who won in equal measure in both battleground and traditionally Republican states to reach the 270 votes needed in the Electoral College. Harris's shortened campaign cycle, which only began in late July after President Biden withdrew from the race and handed the torch to his running mate, was marked by several gaffes and missteps that hindered her efforts to persuade voters and made her political cannon fodder for Trump and his campaign. Fox News Digital looked into Harris's nearly 100 days of campaigning and compiled a list of the biggest mistakes in the vice president's campaign that are likely to cost her support at the polls. In what was perhaps the biggest blunder of Harris's campaign, the vice president said during an appearance on The View in early October that she could not think of any instances where she disagreed with President Biden on policy decisions or policy positions within the administration. What would I have done differently over the last 4 years than President Biden? I can't think of anything, Harris replied. Harris's comments stand in stark contrast to the sentiment of voters who say they are dissatisfied with the current administration's leadership. Preliminary data from the Fox News Voter Analysis, a national survey of more than 110,000 voters, found that a majority of voters went to the polls believing the country was on the wrong track. Before the vote, voters said the country was on the wrong track, 70%, up from 60% 4 years ago who felt that way, and that they wanted something different. Most wanted a change in how the country was run, and about a quarter called for complete and utter upheaval. Kamala Harris is pretty much the same, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance wrote to X last month about Harris's comments on The View. Even she acknowledges that. This will be the nail in Kamala Harris's coffin, Federalist co-founder Sean Davis predicted last month. It reminds me of John Kerry's comments on funding the Iraq War. I voted for $87 billion before I voted against it, to protect myself from accusations that I'm a turncoat with no character, he added. With that one word, his campaign was over. Harris has been criticized multiple times for adopting a new accent in conversations with various voters across the country. Critics once likened her to a cartoon character and, at another campaign rally, to a preacher. Last month, Harris visited Christian Compassion Church in Philadelphia, where she spoke to a mostly black congregation, telling them that in just 9 days, voters would have the power to determine the fate of our country for generations to come. Harris quoted the Psalms in her speech, saying, "Weeping may last for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The road may seem hard, and the work may seem daunting, but joy cometh in the morning, and the church morning shall be on the way." Critics have jumped on social media clips of Harris quoting the Psalms, accusing her of adopting a new pastor accent and comparing her intonation to the speeches of the late Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.